All right, so let's get into it, Rha. I think that we've sort of figured out in the last couple of years that everything we thought we knew, we don't know anymore. There are so many things that have become very clear: our interconnectedness, our interdependence. The problems have bubbled up to the surface. And I think we've also sort of seen that people are not super equipped to be present in this world. There's a lot of avoiding, evading. But it also feels like there's this big shift happening. We're going in a direction. And so I want to know what you see. That's something that I sort of think of you as somebody who sees that big picture and sees all of these dynamics happening. And what do you see as the shifts that are happening? What clarity can you give us on, like, what's really going on here? A couple of things that are clear to you with how you've observed the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I've been calling this, as Vanessa knows, working on the second book. Or should I say it's working on me. Real talk. I'm calling it The Great Renegotiation. And I know there's a lot of the greats going on, right? But I don't think we are fully yet at the place where we've come to grips with all of what we've been through over the last couple of years. But the truth of the matter is that it's been building, and Shelley and I were talking about this. It's been building for quite some time, and it's sort of like what I call, the sacred pause, the racial justice reckoning, the economy, the mental health pandemic, all of these realities converging. And I think that there are layers and layers and layers and layers of experience that we are still starting to unravel. For some of us, it's showing up in our bodies. For others of us, it is showing up in our mental and emotional health and well-being. For some of us, it's showing up in our relationships and our work. But all of this, I think, at the core, is that we are sifting and sorting through our experience and really starting to ask some of the deeper questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want to live? And I think this renegotiation is a reset on ambition. Ambition is an interesting thing and a tricky thing, right? Because for a lot of us, we don't feel permission to want. Mm-hmm. Wanting is not necessarily okay. Depending upon what circle you're in, we inflate or deflate what we want because there's a certain set of appearances or standards often that we're negotiating, right? So I feel like we've come from the great negotiation, which is how do I conform, how do I fit in, how do I meet the standard, the status quo, and then I think we went into, right, what's now the great resignation, right? Everybody, I quit, get me the hell up out of here, right? All around, not just the jobs, y'all know. We quitting each other, we quitting a lot of things. And now I think this great renegotiation is about the sifting and the sorting and the questioning of what really aligns with the truth of my spirit. And am I willing to be courageous enough to stand in enough? I am enough. It is enough. We are enough. And I think we're just at the beginning stages of starting to try that on.
Yeah. That juxtaposition between want more and be enough at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about, I was talking to somebody and we were saying, there are people who have sort of managed through this really, really difficult process with a lot of sort of resourcefulness and groundedness and tools. But there are a lot of people who are like really spinning. And you know what? Rightly so, right? Like this is existential. This is existential for us. And so how do we reconcile the existential with the I got to get up and decide what to do today, mm-hmm. right? And sort of a little bit more, particularly for this crowd that has, I think, mission and purpose and drive and things that we're all doing in the world. That's why you're here. Things that we're all doing in the world. So how do you sort of figure out your role? Like, what's my role in the future that we're creating? What's your role, Rha? Maybe you can talk about how you think about it. And then how do we think about, like, what's our role in this new world we're creating when, you know, all of a sudden the sands are sort of shifting beneath us and we have to decide, yeah, what am I going to do with this one lifetime on Earth that I have?
Yeah, I think it is a practice. I think we have to keep tuning in. I think we have to stay awake at the wheel, because I think the process of aligning and realigning and aligning and realigning again has to do with all of the ways that we are changing. We have always been changing, but there's a way in which I believe we're more aware of the fact that we're shifting. Like, wow, yesterday I thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and today I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, we're back and forth with ourselves, and I almost feel like, you know, the image I get is a tuning fork. And I think this purpose piece is really interesting, right? Because I believe, and I remember a dear, dear mentor of mine, David Gershon, said to me many, many years ago, stay true to the impulse, but be flexible about the form. You know, in other words, what you are called to will take many forms and shapes in any given moment, right? That's the what do I get up and do today? But that the ultimate impulse of what is moving through you will continue to move through you as you grow and evolve and change, and you'll be more and more in touch with it. It will get clearer and clearer as you go. You'll lose it, and then you'll find it again. You'll remember it, then you'll forget. And I think there's something about being willing to be in that process. I think for me, my role, you know, I think when I asked myself that question at the very, very maybe beginning of my own awareness of ambition, there was a title next to it. Do you know what I mean? There was a box that I could check. And I feel like now my role is to stay woke as much as I can and keep awakening, keep saying yes, keep creating space, keep elevating the vibration and the energy, and at the same time keep surrendering, because wherever the tide takes me is wherever the tide takes me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that I've really had this sense that if I really focus on what I'm supposed to be doing, it's going to be tricky to figure out. If I really focus on who I am, it's going to become very clear what I'm supposed to be doing, and like a lot of space for joy in that too, right? Like the things I want to do based on knowing really who I am. It's almost like that's the guide, right? Not so much what you're going and doing out in the world. It's like, just work on that part. Like, who am I? What feels true? What feels really, really right to me? And then it becomes pretty clear what to do next.
The most valuable currency we have is our time and our energy. And I feel like, again, this heightened awareness of that, because we've gone from a place of very little choice to now starting to have choices again. Am I going to get on that plane or not? Do I really still like that person?
That's right.
Or not? I mean, you know, right? Like we're sifting and sorting at every single level. And I think, to your point, this idea of what feels good, what feels right, what feels true, are great questions to be asking right now.
Yeah, and it's such an opportunity, but it's also destabilizing, because all of a sudden, like, no rules, right? It's like, you know, with kids, it's like no rules. It's like, wait, that's not good. We're like little kids who are like, shit, there are no rules. That feels really unsafe to me. But also, there are no rules, right? Like, we get to rethink everything. We get to redecide, renegotiate everything. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that is very specific to me, and I was like, I'm going to have one little selfish question in there, and hopefully it'll help some of you guys too. So, Rha wrote this book, which each of you is taking home, The Calling. Three fundamental shifts to stay true, get paid, and do good. I love that. I like the get paid part too. It's important. It's like, we got to have that in the conversation. And so here's my question. I really struggle with this idea of doing it right versus doing it big. I have a really interesting relationship with big. Big as defined as big presence, big reach, lots of people, well-known, press. Like, I really, really struggle with it. And part of me is like, I'm just gonna do my thing, go, stick to my guns, get it right, and it doesn't matter, and it's gonna grow organically. And then part of me is like, oh, is that me keeping myself small? And I don't, like, there are a lot of things I've figured out in life. This one I haven't, so Rha, tell me, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, the great renegotiation. It's interesting because where I've landed myself is to feel into the energy of whatever I'm doing and to actually ask it how big it wants to be or how it wants to have life in the world. Because to your point, when I'm asking myself those questions, it's my she-go, it's my, a lot of things up in there. It's, maybe source, maybe a little bit source, 1 part source, 2 parts she-go, 3 parts what somebody else said.
1 to 4 for me.
You know what I mean? And I think this seduction is really what we all have to be paying attention to, because it's really easy to get seduced. Even with the best intentions, like you can be on your path, doing your thing, feeling good, and then something will come in your DM about somebody's book launch or somebody hitting some list, and then, here we go. Oh my God.
Thank you for saying that out loud.
I
really appreciate you for that.
What am I doing with my life, right?
Yeah.
The incredible, incomparable Grace Lee Boggs, God rest her soul, community organizer based out of Detroit, worked many, many years with King and Harry Belafonte and many of the other organizers in the civil rights movement. In her final book before she passed, called The Next American Revolution, she talked about this idea of seduction and what it is that often we get the temptation or we get called to go a mile wide and an inch deep. And she reckoned her life, because she stayed in Detroit. She was known nationally. And it wasn't that she didn't travel, but she was always carrying Detroit in the center of her spirit with her. And she said, I wonder what it is, when we start to talk about the work and the true work, I wonder what it is to go an inch wide and a mile deep. And could we trust that the ripples of where we stand and what we invest in and where we plant would still be found? And I think that's an interesting question for us, because I don't always know that we think about the ripples. Can I give a case in point? Maybe. And I share this in the sanctity of us because I believe we're family. For many of us who do work in the world, there is this aspiration called a TED Talk. Anybody? I see myself on the stage. And there's all kinds of maneuvering we know that can occur to create that experience. My collaborator and I did a body of work that had TED come to us. And literally within a space of 10 days, taking a stage, blah, 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 blah. And for me, the whole experience was about surrender and letting go and letting God. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna worry, I'm not gonna whatever, I'm not gonna I'm just gonna give it what God is asking me to give it and let go. And I say that not because for me it was about checking that box, but for me it was rather about, if I cannot worry about who sees me or who values me or how many boxes I check, if I can keep my eyes on whatever my prize is, can I trust? And I think that is the question, because sometimes you are going to be called to big and splashy, and sometimes you are going to be called to quiet and deep. Mm-hmm. But I think the fundamental question at the center of it is, can you trust? And can you let go? I have negotiated with myself many, many times about what I pay attention to. And what I know in my spirit is that I feel the best when my mind is on the work. when my heart is on the impact, when I'm clearly immersed in what it is that I think I'm here to do, and let the other stuff really take care of itself.
Thank you for that, Rha. That's just what I needed to hear. I appreciate you. I'm going to do one more question. There are a lot of people who are not doing okay. A lot of people who are unwell. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. There's structural reasons, there's political reasons, there's, What needs to shift? What needs to shift? And this doesn't have to be like the answer, right? But like, what things need to shift either structurally, politically, ideologically, to make it possible for people to have fundamental well-being, and all people to have fundamental well-being? What needs to shift?
All of it. Every single bit of it. I am really speaking it in the context of rehumanization. And what I mean when I say rehumanization is us coming back to our humanity. I feel the last 2 years plus we've had a humanizing experience, right? Like, no question. Again, no matter what intersecting aspect of this experience, we're talking about the racial justice piece, the economy piece, the mental health piece, the work piece, the physical health piece. And the rehumanization for me is about this awakening to all of the ways in which we have put our humanity on the back burner, or we have pushed aside our humanity, whether that's working unbelievable hours, whether that's being in situations and circumstances where we're not respected, whether that, and we can go on and on and on. But I think we live in a current paradigm of power that is guided by greed, dominance, and exploitation. Right? Greed, take it all. Dominance, control it all. Exploitation, use it all to your highest advantage by any means necessary. And this has been the foundation for our economy, the foundation for our societal structures. And we are in a moment where we have the potential to pull up some of the floor tiles, to really unearth the foundation, and to begin to ask ourselves about different notions of power, because this is really the conversation of power. Yep. And in the old paradigm of power, it has been founded on human hierarchy. These people are more expendable than those people. These people are more important than those people. These people are more entitled than those people. And everything that we've built has operated inside of that context. So the opportunity of rehumanization, and this is what I think we're awakening into, is our opportunity to look at what would it be if I put my humanity first? What would it be if I put your humanity first? What does that look like in terms of systems and structures and ideologies and protocols? How might we show up different if we considered that our humanity was the central thing to nurture and care for? This is the well-being conversation. This is the belonging conversation, right? Rehumanization. That's the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm struck that there's a lot of power in this room. There's a lot of power in this room. And I will often say to people, there's a lot of conversations I have with people who are struggling with the same thing I struggle with all the time. It's like this thing where we keep ourselves small. And I say, the people who don't give a shit about everyone else are out there making themselves big, and you, with your heart and your heart full of love doing out of your work, it is your responsibility to go do your thing without fear. Because otherwise, those people are going to go do it without fear. So I'm just telling all of you, there's a lot of power in this room. I feel like a lot of that work can be done, is being done by people in this room. Yeah. So thank you, Rha. Rha and I could talk for hours, and I know you guys have lives to get back to. So thank you, Rha, for being here. I appreciate you.